Hello.
Hello. All right, I think everyone's starting to join us. We just give Christian. I think he's in the. He's around. Let's just make sure he gets connected.
I also quit my Xcode beta just in case.
Probably a good call.
I've seen Paul Hudson did a stream yesterday about all the new features in SwiftUI and Swift 5. And his simulator completely screwed up his audio engine on his Mac. So I thought, let's not push that
right now. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. But overall, I think it works pretty well, the betas, the Xcode beta so far. I haven't installed iOS yet, though.
I did iPad OS and haven't had any problems yet.
All right.
Actually, I just keep on tapping on the little app library because the animation is so nice. The little icons all flying in and out. So,
yeah. Did you see that there are some widgets on the iPad that has a transparent background? I haven't.
Oh, cool.
I haven't come across that when making widgets.
Do you want to check in with Christian?
Yeah, I'm gonna check in.
I think it's all the system widgets that have the transparent background.
Entitlements.
Yeah.
All right. In case people can see us already, welcome everyone. We'll get formally started as soon as Christian is joining us, which should be shortly. We've had a little bit of a link mix-up, I think, but we're working through it. We should be there shortly.
All right, let's have a look. I'm just checking him. He was in the chat before, I believe. But yeah, can just keep on talking about iOS 15.
Are you two gonna install it on your primary devices anytime soon?
I don't think so. I've been bitten too many times by that.
I have a major update lined up for the end of this month, so not the primary device. I'll probably get it on my iPad Pro.
Yep, that's what I did. I added iOS on my iPad, and then on the Mac, I actually have had good luck. I made a new volume or whatever on the same APFS group or what, I don't remember the terminology, but I didn't have to do much and seems to be working to be able to boot into Monterey. So I have that running.
I always tell myself, all right, this year I hold off. And I know by the time we hang up this get together, I'm already gonna install it.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, Christian.
There you go. Hey,
am I?
Oh, thanks. Am I audible at all?
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. We got it.
All right, great.
Do you buy that Pro Display XDR just so you can show it off in this get together?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have a webcam, right?
Yeah.
Useless. All right. Now let's probably do a formal introduction now that everyone's here. So yeah, welcome everyone to our Indie Dev Get Together. We're going to start out with a panel discussion. So we have 3 awesome indie developers joining us here today, and we're just going to have a sort of casual chat about being an indie developer and everything that goes with that. And after that, we're going to hang out in Gather Town just to have a more, like, I guess a one-to-one, so that people can just chat with each other about indie development in general. There might be people who are not indie developers who haven't started making their own apps, so that's the perfect time to start chatting about this.
But conceptually pretty informal. It's more, imagine we're all sitting in a coffee shop together, having the background noise of coffee being ground by baristas, and we're chatting about our indie lives.
Or if you're not a coffee person, the tea steeping.
Yeah, the noise of tea steeping. And talking about all of our indie efforts and indie things that we're working on.
Yeah.
So
also, if people have any questions, it's a QR code on the screen, so you can scan that and go to a separate page, and we should be able to see that, and then we will get to people's questions towards the end. So feel free to send anything through.
Cool. Introductions. Chris, do you want to get started?
Sure. So I'm an indie app developer. I make an app called Nihongo, which is a Japanese dictionary and study app. So sort of in addition to being just a great Japanese dictionary, the idea of the app is to make it really easy to study words that you're encountering naturally. So instead of studying from pre-made vocabulary lists. You might be reading a Japanese manga or something and take a picture and tap on words. You can take a picture, tap on words to look them up, and it'll automatically make flashcards for you with the words that you looked up and the pictures attached to the flashcards. You can get back to them. So a bunch of different ideas about how you can get words you're using in real life into your study routine. I've been an indie app developer. Well, I started building the app back in about 2012 and launched it in 2014, and just had it on the side as I was, a full-time software engineer. And then went full-time indie on it about 2.5 years ago in 2018. So I've been doing that now, and I live in beautiful rural Vermont in the United States.
And I already have a question. Nihongo, what does that mean?
Nihongo is the word in Japanese for the Japanese language. So it's basically Japanese in Japanese.
Aren't you clever?
Yeah.
On the nose.
All right. Let's move it over to Vidit to introduce himself.
Hi, so I'm Vidit. I'm from New Delhi, India. I also develop an education, learning, and dictionary app. It's called LookUp. It's an English dictionary. The whole idea of the app is to make it easier for people to learn English through illustrated word of the day cards and quizzes and translations, so that the language is not as intimidating as it seems to somebody who's learning it. And you can use it to improve your vocabulary as well, or prepare for your English proficiency tests.
And when did you get started?
I started, me and my brother started developing it in 2012 and launched in May of 2014.
Awesome. All right, Christian.
I guess I'm the non-productive one out. Everyone's has such impressive apps. Mine's a little more on the, I suppose, meme side. There's a cat. Where it's not quite as productive. I started working on it in 2014. It's a Reddit app called Apollo. At the time, Ruby. At the time,
good timing.
Yeah, really though. At the time, I wanted a Reddit app for iOS that felt really at home on iOS. I found none of the solutions at the time really felt like they were crafted for iOS first. So I more so to scratch an itch for myself, I set out to try to build something I would use. And along the way, a few people expressed that they'd be interested in something too. So I've been working on it full time since 2014. And not quite making the world more productive, but it, I guess we all need breaks from your productive apps once in a while, I suppose.
That's awesome. How did you come up with the name?
That was a bit roundabout. The name's always the trickiest part. I was talking to a friend over it, and we got on the topic about how Reddit's kind of space themed in a way, with the alien logo and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about spaceships because spaceships are a way to get around space, and Apollo's a way to get around this space themed thing. And Apollo is such an iconic spacecraft that it seemed pretty fitting. And it's just one of those words where you heard it for the first time and I was like, yeah, that's it. That it has a nice punch to it. So I was pretty sold on it right away.
Yeah. Do you have any copyright concerns?
I think you have to be operating within the same contextual space for there to be any concern. So long as I don't
completely eliminated your chance of pivoting into spacecraft now.
I think so, but at the same time, I'm Canadian, and I think the NASA stuff is Apollo's all American. So I think I might lay claim to the Canadian version of Apollo ships.
Thought of everything.
Awesome. Just for people who don't know who Kai and I are.
Good point.
We are making an app called Orbit. It's a time tracking and invoicing app for freelancers, small teams, and people who just want to keep track of their time and ideally also get paid for that time. We make a Mac app, iOS, iPadOS, and watchOS more recently. Decided to go full in on SwiftUI. So this has been an exciting year for us with WWDC. I feel like I got a lot of my sort of wish list items resolved, I guess. How does everyone else feel? Are you excited about all the announcements? Do you feel like there are things that you want to use directly?
I think so. So wait, you have everything but like tvOS, right? Then, if I was checking.
And CarPlay.
Okay, fair.
But we're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting to tvOS.
No, you just almost got all those boxes checked, so I figured.
I know. No, tvOS is actually on our agenda. I don't know how you're saying we're in the productivity category. I don't know how productive it is to make Orbit for tvOS, but we thought there is a potential, right? If you have like a design studio that uses it as a team, and you use the tvOS app as a dashboard of what people are working on and what projects people are doing. And
I don't think you'd lose any customers over it. So
that's the reinforcement we wanted. Thanks.
All right. I want to see you everywhere. It's just cool to have that little pin.
If you're going to build an app in Swift UI, I mean, you got to take advantage of that, right?
Yeah.
And there are actually a lot of benefits to that, right? Because if we build it, we thought about it. Well, we often go for walks and kind of talk about, all right, what kind of silly things could we use our Swift UI stuff for? And we could actually build like really nice components for that kind of dashboard, right?
But they're not silly. That's a good component.
Yeah, Panic made an app a while ago that allowed you to kind of build your completely custom dashboard.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Exactly. That's what was coming to my mind when I heard like Orbit for tvOS.
Yeah.
And I mean, Panic couldn't make it work, so we to try it again. But we thought it would actually be kind of fun to have like different components that you can kind of scroll through and kind of customize your own dashboard. And each of those components we could actually then use in other apps where people might actually use them, like the macOS app and the iPadOS app, because we have a dashboard there, right? If we have those components and people want to see like a team overview.
It's also a good use case to use those for widgets as well.
Yeah.
Especially now on the iPad with the bigger widgets.
Yeah.
For me, the big sort of, I was just going to say, for me, the big sort of surprise feature of WWDC that I think I'm going to adopt is the Safari extensions on iOS. Because I have an action extension right now that is used to like make it so you can tap on words on a website to look them up really quickly. But I'm realizing like that's like a one-time, you basically read everything that you want from the website once, and then you send back a response, and that's just like one way each direction. And with the extension, you can actually go back and forth as much as you want. And so I can get rid of this like long loading time at the beginning where I just suck everything in and process it and then spit it all back out. I can do it all sort of as the person's browsing the page. And when you navigate to new pages, you don't have to go to the share menu again. You can just, have it happen automatically. So I wasn't really expecting to be working on a Safari extension this summer, but I have a feeling that's kind of what I'm going to be doing.
And it's all like JavaScript, so you're like a web developer now, I suppose.
Yeah, I get to brush off those old JavaScript skills. I did a little bit of web development in my previous career, so.
Oh, nice. Okay. It won't be too much of a departure then.
Yeah.
PTSD. How about you, Vidit? What is your kind of? Do you have one thing you're like, oh, this is what my summer is going to be like?
The SharePlay APIs. They seem like really, really interesting. It seems like a very good idea to have like a, for LookUp at least, I'm looking at something like a peer learning process where you can, just jump on a FaceTime call and, a couple of students, they can just take a quiz or, add words to a collections collectively. That sort of makes it very like conducive to a peer learning environment. Whereas the other APIs are like, there are a few quality of life improvements throughout the OS, but like SharePlay is, I think, going to take the majority of my time this summer.
Have you had a chance to look at like the APIs? Are they tricky?
So far they seem pretty straightforward, but I haven't really got a chance to code them.
I'm going to be really curious to see what all sorts of different apps use with that. Like, it's one of those things that seems like it'd be really complicated without an API like that to do. So no one's like do it unless it's like the perfect fit for their app. But once it's easy, I bet a bunch of apps will make collaborative experiences. And,
has anyone actually experimented with any of the system apps that do this? Like Notes?
Oh, no,
I haven't yet.
Because I'm curious to see how instantaneous it is. Because in the demos that they showed, it seemed really fast, but I'm not sure if that's a demo thing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
I think Final Cut Pro can help with those kind of issues. Yeah, but I'm curious too, because I mean, we often watch stuff together with friends, like keynotes, sessions. We often do that, right? And for that alone, I'm looking forward to it. But if that becomes a thing that everyone could hook into, I would love that. You always need a FaceTime call attached to it, right? You can't just say I wanna sketch something with Christian. We have to also talk to each other, right? Sorry, Christian.
This is the first I'm hearing of this, eh? I think so. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Right.
This seems like more like an ephemeral collaboration as opposed to something like something what CloudKit or iCloud provides, where you can add people to a node and then they do like a live collaboration kind of thing.
Right. How did you all get into indie development? Like, was it something you're like, all right,
wake up a day?
Yeah, quit my job. I'm an indie developer now. It's like, all right, what's the first app I should try? Or was it something you're like, look, I make this app now, it makes millions of dollars. Maybe I should do that. Like, what was your journey? Vidit,
So I was a school student and I was preparing for my exams, and my brother knew how to program apps, and we had like tried a couple of movie trivia games prior to that one, prior to LookUp, and I had this idea, like, at that time we had like a shared iPod, and all the dictionary apps used to like occupy 200 or 300 MB, and for an 8 GB iPod, that's a little too much. And so I had this idea that you could have like a simple dictionary where the user just searches for a word and they get the definitions, and it's very straightforward, no ads, no account setups, nothing. And that was basically my idea of what a dictionary should be. And I gave it to my brother, and like I made a few sketches on Photoshop at that time, and like shared it with my brother. And
that's a perfect setup. You already had your first employee.
Yeah, we both worked on it together. I would say we have a lot of back and forth. About,
so your first foray at all into iOS development was LookUp?
No, I had a couple of movie trivia games prior.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Fair enough. Right.
But those were like I would design them and my brother would program them. LookUp, at some point I started programming myself as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Chris?
Did you say Chris or Christian?
Chris.
I think you're the one true Chris. I'll be Christian.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a little bit in my beginner talk earlier this week, and I can kind of elaborate on that story a little bit. So I started with games, actually, and I made.
Yeah, I definitely want you to elaborate on the Ouya part, because that one was the one that got me excited.
Yeah, I tried to ride the Ouya wave to millionaire status, and it turns out that wasn't really a good idea.
I mean, I think there's at least one game that actually somehow made it to survive the Ouya, and that's Towerfall.
I didn't know that's.
Any of you played Towerfall?
That came out on the Ouya?
Yeah, they launched on the Ouya, and it's
oh my god!
I mean, for indie, very successful. Yeah. But I think that's the only one that survived the attack of the Ouya.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
no, that game's incredible.
Yeah, it's actually a Vancouver studio. They later made Celeste.
Cool.
It's amazing games. So if you want to support indie games apart from indie developers, both Towerfall and Celeste cannot recommend.
Great
enough.
games, yeah.
Sorry, Chris.
Celeste isn't from Vancouver, though, is it?
Pardon?
Celeste isn't from Vancouver, too.
Celeste is also from Vancouver. Oh. I mean, the team is a bit distributed. They have some people that work in different parts of the world, but the studio is originally from Vancouver, and most of the people are in the Vancouver studio.
Wow. Sorry, Chris. That's
So anyway, yeah. So in 2012, I moved to Japan, and that was kind of the part of the story I decided to just cut from the whole beginner talk because it was too much. But I moved to Japan, and my husband was teaching. He got into the JET program and was teaching English at a Japanese high school. And I basically decided to quit my job. And I had published an app on the App Store. I published a game called Pipe Drop. And so when I went to Japan, I decided, okay, I'm gonna use this time to start making more indie games and dive into that full time. And it turned out I actually didn't really like it that much. I found once I was actually doing it every day, the game design part of it, which I kind of liked a little bit, was not as fun as the game engine part, which especially with Pipe Drop, there was no game engines yet or anything. So you just had to manipulate things and build the engines yourself and stuff. But once I was by this point there was Unity, there was other things, and it felt like a waste to be building these game engines myself. I should just be making the games, and then that was the part I didn't like as much. So anyway, I ended up kind of deciding, or kind of not really enjoying that, and actually like kind of fell into a really bad depression there, because I was in this new country where I like didn't know anybody, and my husband was working every day, so I was kind of on my own, and I had this dream like of being an indie game developer that I like was kind of just failing at doing, and I'd been thinking this, like I set aside all this time and saved up this money to do this, and I couldn't make it happen. So it's actually like really a kind of a low point for me. And I ended up for like visa reasons in particular, ended up starting doing full-time Japanese language classes to get a student visa, and ended up finding this like need for sort of a gap in the apps that were out there, that I had this need that I wanted, which was to be able to look up words in my dictionary and turn them into flashcards super easily. And so that was kind of the first feature for Nihongo, but I really built it for me and not for anybody else. And partially just on purpose, because I just didn't want it to turn into something that was stressful. I didn't want it to be like, I didn't want that pressure on it. So I really built it for me, and I did eventually publish it on the App Store, but for a long time, I kept on working on it, really almost explicitly saying like, I really don't want to spend any time thinking about how this could make money, because that's just going to stress me out and make it not fun anymore. So I did that, and I built it on the side, got a full-time job again back in the States after 2 years in Japan. And then it started to pick up, and I kind of got over my PTSD of my indie game dev experience, and started to actually think about how this could make money. Got some lucky breaks with that, which I could dive into, and then finally got to a point where I could like, okay, I'm going to actually do this, and 2 years ago now, actually sort of went full time on it. So. Yeah,
that's crazy. Pipe Drop, did you do any other game? Did you try to make another game after that, or during the development you're already like, oh no, I don't want to do this?
No, I did. I made 2 games. I had.
Sorry to bring up the PTSD triggers
it's
again.
Totally fine. But so when I was in Japan, I started on 2 games. One of them was a Zelda-style RPG that I aptly codenamed Zelda-style RPG. And then I had another.
Asked Christian about his copyright concerns.
And then the other one, which I still want to get back to someday, because I actually still like the idea, was like a Katamari Damacy inspired bullet hell game. Okay. Where, so you'd like, it was bullet hell, so you'd be like shooting all these different things, but then they'd all drop debris, and then you'd suck up the debris, and your little guy would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and your character would like outgrow the stage it was in, and so it'd get, and then you'd be fighting things that are bigger, and eventually you'd come back to some earlier part of the game, and you'd be like 100 times larger than this tiny little flower, you were on for the first part. So anyway, so that was my other game. Both these were way too ambitious to so they never got anywhere near finished. But.
What, making a Zelda game is ambitious? Oh, that's awesome. How did you pronounce? I always pronounce it Katamari. How do you actually pronounce that type
Katamari.
Of game?
Katamari Damacy. Yeah.
All right. I
we just get you to say it every time.
Oh, all right. Christian, how about you?
How to get into the indie game? That's a good question. I guess it was very gradual. It just kind of fell in this place. I was working on Apollo for a while, and I ended up posting on a subreddit about the Apple subreddit, saying I'm building this iOS app for Reddit. If anyone else is interested, just kind of gauge interest and get some beta testers. And it turns out a lot of people are interested. So I was like, okay, I should probably see this through. And that was the point where I was just graduating, and I was trying to figure out like, oh, what should I do after I finish university? And there was enough interest in that I figured, okay, I might as well at least see this through. Because before I finished university, I did an internship at Apple. So I had a little bit of money saved up. So I was like, okay, I'll burn through that. See if I could see this through. And it took a while, a lot longer than I thought, but I eventually managed to get it onto the App Store, and it did well pretty much initially, thankfully. Just kind of, if anything, it was cheating just because you build beta testers up for like 2 years, and they're all frothing to actually have it released. So of course, once you release it, there's all that pent up demand already out of not making any money for 2 years. And after that, it just kind of fell into place, and it's been the same way since. Thankfully, just keep trying to make it better and better and better.
I was going to ask, so it took you from like getting started until you had something, it took you roughly 2 years?
Yeah, I want to say, so I started in 2014. I paused when I went to Apple for a bit because you can't do any side projects while you're there. And then I came back. I think I had like 2 more semesters of university, so I plugged away at that. And then at that point, I think I posted it. So I want to say it was like probably 2.5 years before it was on the App Store. And it was definitely at that point where there were a lot of people in the subreddit being like, this is just vaporware. Like, it's never actually going to get published. So it was kind of nice to be like, well, I'm working like every day on it. So I certainly hope you're wrong and this sees the light of day, because I kind of need the money eventually.
How did you handle the stress? I assume over the 2.5 years, the stress was not flat. I assume it kind of increased as you got closer to release, right?
Yeah, I honestly didn't feel too stressed. And in hindsight, I'm not 100% sure why. Like, the feedback was always very kind toward it. So like people, if anything, the worst feedback I got was like, can you hurry up? So people were always very kind. So I didn't feel super stressed going into it. I just was kind of excited to get it out to more people, because I think at the time TestFlight had like a 1,000 or 2,000 user limit. So there were a lot of people just hanging around the subreddit being like, I'd love to try this out or pay you. I just can't yet. So it was kind of a load off just to be able to be like, oh my gosh, finally I can say I finished this up. And I can start hopefully making money again instead of bleeding it. So yeah, if anything, it was kind of relieving, I guess. I wanted it out just as much as everybody else did. So it felt very relieving to finally be able to hit the release button finally.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think we kind of for Orbit set ourselves a goal of getting it done in, I think 2.5 months was our initial goal, with a stretch of 3. And for us, the pressure built up like crazy. And for you, that was way
Did
longer.
you meet your timeline?
We started experimenting with that probably in like December of 2019.
Yes.
And then we really started building it throughout January, February that year. And I think it took us, it's hard to say because we made both the Mac app and the backend part of it. But I think it took us probably 3.5 months to finish the Mac app.
That's really quick.
Yeah, you must be the first developers who like nailed the time estimate.
Malin is amazing at that. I don't know how she's doing it, but we're still doing some freelance work on the side. And Malin gave an estimate to like a day. I was like, why would you give an estimate to a day? And here, 3 months later, I sit there like a fool. She's like, all right, it's the Friday that I said, and the feature is done. I was like, how do you do that? It wasn't even that she was sitting down and planning for like a week to figure out how long will everything take. She was like, off the cuff, I think I should have it done on that particular Friday.
Is that just experience? Like doing it enough times that you get good at it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Malin has a weird superpower, and I have no idea where it comes from. So I cannot claim any credit of any of our timelines. It must be Malin. But it's sometimes, you see something online, you're like, this many thousand people bought this particular product, and you're like, oh, wow, that's a higher number than I thought. And then you ask your partner or a friend, hey, guess how many people bought this thing? And because you're excited for them to guess wrong, for you to then reveal the answer, right? And I read it's like 54,250 people. And Malin's like, how about 54,250 people? I was like, how did you do that?
Oh my God.
It's like consonants. It's so disappointing, but still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Impressive.
That's really a superpower in indie development, actually.
Yeah,
I think I've given like 50 timelines over my career, and I don't think I've been within spitting distance of any.
But then I think the iOS app took us about 4 weeks. Which was really cool. And I think that was partly because I had done Swift UI. I think we were very fortunate to be able to use a lot of the same, we were able to use a lot of the same data models and network and all of that. And then also some views were the same across.
But it was very 1.0.
Yeah, and to be fair,
also just for full disclosure.
Yeah, I think like probably October we actually felt like that was something that like October the same year we felt okay, that's when we should.
Now we have something pretty decent.
Yeah, but we did release in June, so it took us a while before we got to something where we felt like, okay, this is exactly, like, this is feature complete. But we really wanted to get it out before WWDC, and we rather want to get it out with fewer features. And that was sort of the idea of Orbit. It's like you can really iterate on it and continue adding more and more things.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Finding that point to draw a line in the sand is tricky to no one really said.
Yeah.
But I think that was good. And now we still have a few things that we don't have in there, but we're continuing iterating. So there was a question. Someone said something, and I thought of a question. What do you know?
Christian, you mentioned that you found most of your users. I mean, for you, your audience, you kind of knew where they were, right? Reddit client.
Yeah.
How about Reddit?
I feel so terrible when like somebody will like DM me on Twitter and be like, "Oh, like how do you find an audience for your app?" And it's just like I completely cheated. Like it's like going down to a farmer's market and selling vegetables. Like of course people are probably going to be interested there. Like it's. Whereas, somebody's like making like a swimming app, and I'm like, gee, I don't know, like hit up the local pools. Like I honestly haven't, I have no clue. And God,
will say, hey, can I do something on my phone?
Yeah. No, because God forbid I ever have an app where I can't do that with, and I'm going to be, up the creek without a paddle or whatever, because it's going to be rough. But
because I've seen a lot of people struggling because Reddit has an app platform, right? And I've seen you experimenting with that. Did that work for you, or did you like, it's fun?
Like the advertising?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had most of the time I don't know what I'm doing with ads. I think most of the time I'll work on it for a week and then look at them and I'm like, I'm not quite sure how to measure the results. And then I'll forget for like a few months, and then I'll be like, I should do that again. And then the exact same thing happens, and I'm like, those are numbers. I'm not sure how that relates to anything else. And it's the same thing. Like some days I'll just have like an uptick of like twice as many downloads, and I'll just be like, where did that come from? Like I have no, and I'm sure there's some like Silicon Valley person who's like, you need to attribute every download to a specific location or something. And half the time, like I couldn't even tell you like what my daily downloads are. I'm just like, it's good enough. Things are good. It's
all right. Switching to Chris.
Real advice for people.
We can all silently be cursing Christian for his success. But wait, so what was the question exactly?
Well, I guess sort of like how to approach like finding your users and and those parts as well.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I don't have like a really obvious place, and I have gone and tried to find various internet, message boards and things that are good hangouts for people, Gaijin Pot and different things, and reached out to a ton of different, Japanese related blogging things and everything, and have some mild success, but never anything that feels like it's making a huge impact, like immediate. Like I never see a big spike as a result of one particular event. Mm-hmm. I think some of the podcasting stuff has been helpful. I went on the language mastery show podcast, and that was good. But I get the feeling that it's mostly just been word of mouth and been slow, really slow, boil over many years. If you look at my growth, it's really slow and steady, but over the course of like 7 years. So so I have a feeling it's that. The other thing I've done that was probably one of the biggest moments for me was when I got a spike in downloads from China, and I didn't really know what this was about, but all of a sudden I started getting this big spike in downloads from China, and I managed to track it down to this like website that's sort of like the Quora of China in Chinese, and this person had written like a guide basically to how to use Nihongo. So the app at this point wasn't localized. So this was an English-Japanese dictionary, which is why I was so confused by this. Someone had written a guide about how to look up words, like using the features of Nihongo, look up the Japanese words. And when you get to the English, they had a shortcut that they'd set up to translate the English into Chinese. And they had this whole guide on how to use my app, to eventually get to Chinese. And so I took that and like ran with it and immediately like localized the app into Chinese and built in for the definitions that I don't have, like native Chinese definitions, I at least built in the machine translation into it so that, it can be search indexed for the searching and all this sort of stuff. So that was a big deal for me because there was a long period where China was maybe 50% of my revenue.
Oh, wow,
now it's maybe
really?
more
That's
like
impressive.
30, maybe it's more like 30 or 40% now, but it's like at least as big as the United States. It's my largest market for sure. So that was kind of the...
Which
Sorry,
other
what did you say?
countries which other languages do you support?
Right now it's traditional and simplified Chinese, German, French, Spanish, Russian, and I just added Dutch.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was it a lot of work to localize it? Did you find?
Yes, it was. And it's funny because I was just talking to my husband about this when I was because I was telling him about this Safari extension stuff. I just got really excited about all this new Safari extension stuff. And I was like, and I really don't think it's going to be that much work because, I've got this action extension already. I think I'm going to be able to reuse most of it. And he just says, yeah, you said that about localization. And and it was a huge release actually. And part of it was so first off, it's just making sure all your strings are localizable and all of that. And that was one part of it. And getting set up with translators, professional translators, and that whole flow of that. Then the next part was searching. So you want to be able to search in your target language and handle all the conjugations and stuff. So I have all of these definitions in say German. I need to run, when I generate my database that I'm going to have my search index against, I need to generate the lemma forms, like basically generate forms of those that I can search against. And then when I do the searches in the app, I need to also, handle conjugation and things like that, handle umlauts, and or the whatever that little S, the double S thing. Someone here's So
well, I do not know what that letter would be called in English, so I'm no help.
The little
I can
double
speak
S
German
thing.
to you if you want to.
Anyway, so there was just that going into it. And then with Chinese, because I didn't have a data source for Chinese native definitions, I ended up setting up this whole pipeline of like my continuous integration server reaches out every time I download a new version of all of my definitions. I pump any new ones through a machine translator and then store that. So there's all of this infrastructure around it that ended up being really complicated.
Yeah, wow, interesting. But I think that there's also an interesting takeaway of accelerating like luck, right? When you found that thing in that Chinese Quora, actually capitalizing on that and doing something you didn't plan to do, and that probably accelerated your opportunity, right? And I think that is a good approach of if you don't have a specific marketing plan, taking the opportunities you're seeing. It's pretty good. We're great at time management. We got through like 2.5 questions. We had 15. I don't think we'll make it through all of them. Just for everyone listening.
Do you want to go through the time management question?
One of them is about time management. Just for everyone listening, we're going into the Q&A segment in about 5 minutes. So there is a QR code in the bottom right of your screen. If you scan it with your iPhone, you should get to a web page where you can ask questions, and I will just try to get through, I guess, 2 more. No, through as many as we can. While that is happening, Vidit, do you do anything for your kind of user-finding marketing efforts?
My marketing efforts are pretty minimal. I just post on Twitter and try to reach out to blogs. Most of the time, I never hear back from them, but like a couple of them would have in the past like featured us, and so that gives a small uptick, but the actual growth is really gradual. Like it's when I add like certain features to the app that opens up the app to different markets, and that I've seen has helped a lot of people discover it. So like earlier the app was just a dictionary and you'd get a word of the day, and then I added collections to it, and that opened up a market of few more users who saw it as a vocabulary building tool. And then I added quizzes and translations to it, and that opened up a lot more users. And translations actually became so popular that people would like most of the feedback that I get these days is about translation languages. It's about oh, like, do you support this particular language, and when can you support it? And so that's been the gradual increase in the like user base of the app, basically adding features that more and more people would use, and like that has led it to like still continue to show downloads.
Is it mostly word of mouth you find that like helps the biggest, or?
The biggest help has been the App Store features, by the way. Like, like nothing helps like an App Store feature.
Right.
But yeah, a couple of blogs and word of mouth. Word of mouth is not that much, but yeah, a couple of blogs and App Store features.
Have you all been featured on the App Store? Or?
Yeah.
I have never been featured. My app has been out for 7 years, and I've never been featured. So.
All right. So if we have anyone from Apple listening, Nihongo on the App Store, it's pretty cool. Check it out. Yeah, we've been super fortunate, and so far we've been featured on the Mac App Store, iOS, iPadOS, and WatchOS. We had one in each of the platforms.
Did you get widgets like right out of the gate?
Yes.
Like I find. What about you, Chris?
No, I didn't. I still don't have a widget.
I feel like it's those temple features that like they just love, and you really got to go ham on.
Yeah,
but it's also not just Apple, right? They're like those kind of features are always they're interesting to press because like 9to5 Mac and iMore, they always have a list of like, here are all the apps that support widgets, or maybe in a few months, here are all the apps that support shortcuts on a Mac. And they're like actively looking. That's usually the period where you see like all the journalists from all the tech magazines at least saying, hey, if you support those features, please reach out, because they're actively looking. That's such a good opportunity.
And also the benefit of being in those, to go back to the App Store example, the benefit of being in these lists is that they tend to stay around for like almost a year. So I think the widget list is still being displayed on the App Store today. And I think it's really cool if you have a feature that makes sense for the new things that Apple are developing. Like try to get something on day one that can really be like helpful for that, for the feature.
Yeah, and I would absolutely recommend. Apple has a promotion page where you can just submit. Let's say you have an update ready, you're working on it right now for iOS 15 or iPadOS 15 or macOS 12. There's a App Store promote. I forgot what the exact URL is called. I put it in the chat. But you can just put in, here's my app, this is what I've been working on, this is what the features will be. And that really helps people finding your app, because otherwise
I was genuinely surprised that they, like, I just figured they got so many submissions through that you'd never see anything. But yeah, I've had great success just shooting an email off through that and having someone get back to you and be like, oh, this is cool. I'm featuring it, which they must have like a ton of people or just one super hawk-eyed person.
Because they are saying that you should, I think they suggest that you at least let them know like 2 weeks before you're planning on releasing something, which I think was hard for us with iOS because we were starting quite closer to when we want to release. But I think they're soon.
What? I thought you knew like 7 months out what your next 3 projects were going to be.
That's interesting because I always interpreted that as something where you'd like submit once, where you'd be like, I'm going to submit my little profile to Apple or something. But no, you're saying like you do it multiple times, like when you've got a new big feature coming out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. Okay, even when I feel lonely, I'll just hope anyone answers.
Yeah, we actually had someone sending us a message. Hey, I saw you have a new update and you didn't submit the form. So it seems like people are actually using that as a way of, I guess, the editorial team, if they have like a list of things to look at, that makes their life easier. So I would definitely, if you have something you're proud of, I wouldn't do it if you're like, look, a minor bug fixes improvement, you want to look at those. But if you have something where you're like, hey, I'm actually proud of this work. I mean, Apple editorial that's a lot of their work, right? Finding cool apps that do cool things for people on the platform.
And I think that the same thing comes to like reaching out to press. I often felt really uncomfortable in the beginning, like sending messages to people in the press. But I think, if you're actually highlighting something that you've done that is cool for the new platform, that's gonna like for iOS 15, then I think that's often what people in the press are looking for, because they want to write those articles about like what's new for iOS 15.
How did you get past that? If I might ask quickly, how did you get past? Do you find that discomfort with writing those letters initially, just getting through the pain?
Pretty much, yeah. I guess like I spent a lot of time writing the message. Like I was really hesitant on how I should word it, and I really made sure that I also get in touch with people from websites or magazines that I really appreciate myself, because I don't want to just like send it to anyone and see what sticks. I want to send it to people and like really be genuine about it, and like send it to places where I would want to read about other apps. So I think just like adding something that you like sending it to people who you personally like, or to places you personally care about, I think will help with that. But yeah, I was feeling really uncomfortable. I'm like, oh no, maybe this person will like block me wherever they can block me, and they will never get back to me. And then like the day after, someone got back to me. I'm like, oh, that wasn't so hard.
Yeah, I think for us initially, it also really helped to wait. Or I mean, my recommendation isn't waiting, but there was just a period we released our app just before WWDC, and we actually did have people during the WWDC week, press people that tweeted, hey, we're looking for apps that support that. If yours does it, reach out. And that's for us, it was just way easier to say, hey, I saw your tweet that you're looking for apps. We have one if you want to have a look. You know, it just makes it a lot easier when you feel like invited to contact rather than being like, hey, you should really check out my super awesome app, which I think is a lot harder initially when you're like, I've never done this, I don't know anyone. So using those kind of situations, even if it's just a mental trick, right, to get you to do it, and then at some point you might feel a lot more comfortable reaching out again. But let's try to get through some of those guys. We're great at this with the timer.
There are quite a lot of questions, so let's get started.
Who knew indie developers without strict schedules can stick to strict schedules?
Right, there's one that has that's 2 people have upvoted.
Yeah, so we go with the highest voted one first. How do you do your code reviews if you are yourself or a solo developer? That's a good question. Does anyone have an immediate desire to answer that? Otherwise, I pick someone.
I can go.
Right.
Mine will be quick because it's nothing impressive. It's mostly I use Git, obviously, as I'm sure most do. And before I'm ready to submit the update to App Store Connect or whatever, I normally just make sure that I go through all the commits that I've done since the prior build I've marked, and just make sure there's nothing in there that's too stupid, because a lot of the time I'll find like users wouldn't see it, but it's just a bunch of like print statements of garbage emojis just to see if something will get hit there. And I'm like, I really don't need that, like, you know, being committed or even worse, just some like test stuff left up or some to-do stuff. So I find it's just going through your code and just making sure you know where your last good point was and where you are now, and just making sure there's nothing that slipped too badly through. I find that helps me at least.
Before we go to the next question, I just wanted to, I think we wanted to do an announcement. I think Sinchan, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, he's helping us out with all of the social media parts, and I think he wanted to announce something with you. Are you in the chat? Okay, just send us a message if you wanted to interrupt in between. Otherwise, we're going to continue to the next question.
That's clever, rather than awkwardly just waiting. How about you, Vidit? Do you have like a flow for this?
All right, sorry. He is here.
Not a... Okay.
So, I'm sorry. Do you want to jump on the stream?
What?
Sinchan. He said that he is here.
I think he's doing a gather announcement.
Okay, I think he's doing a gather announcement. So let's just be quiet for a while. No, it is that awkward silence.
All right, just can you ask him to send you a message if we should be quiet? Otherwise, we just assume we continue as normal.
Yes.
All right, Vidit, what's your code review process?
Yes. My code review process is pretty simple. It's like I would... Okay, so I think...
Let's just keep on talking.
Yep.
Okay. So my code review process is pretty simple. It's just, you know...
okay, sorry. We should be quiet. I'm so sorry, Vidit.
That's fine.
We will let you get to answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just join this to see where we are.
My mic's bad.
All right, and we're back.
All right, Vidit, how do you deal with code reviews?
So yeah, pretty simple code review process. I just before publishing anything on the App Store, I would just let my brother have a look at the code, and like he would just do a check, and yeah, that's all.
Does your brother want to look at my code too, maybe?
I would definitely ask him.
We should do like an indie developer code review club where we review each other's code and help each other out during like tricky pull requests.
Oh,
Yeah.
mine would be more like a code roast, I think, but
I like that even better.
yeah. Give me whatever you got.
That sounds like a next year WWDC charity event where Christian is going through our code and roast.
Yeah, where Malin was saying it's hard to put yourself out there for writing the letters. I mean, that would be it for me. I'm not sure. I've got some bad code up. Files there.
I am much looser with my code on my own project than I was when I was a software engineer at a company. I'll definitely say that.
What do you do now?
What did you say?
What do you do now for your?
I mean, I don't do the same. Like before I do a release, I mean, I do quality verification kind of in different ways. Like I have a huge UI test suite that I run, and a huge test plan that I have laid. Basically, I have a massive test plan laid out, like a numbers spreadsheet with like every piece of functionality in the app, and then I go through and automate as much of that as I can, and then I have that run. So in terms of like verifying that things are working properly, that's like my main thing. But then like actual coding wise, I quickly check things before I commit them, but I'm much more rapid than I would be normally.
Yeah, we're in a fortunate situation that we usually too. So we're actually going through like a pull request and we're at least reading each other's and kind of trying to comment if there's something that I did that's too silly.
And then we had tried to have fun with it. Like we had this one period where we were trying to put like the most cliche marketing slogans in our approval messages that we could.
Okay, I like that. Yeah,
That's
make
cool.
it a little
We had
more.
like a YouTube clickbait period as well, where each pull request had a you won't believe feature number 3.
That's awesome. And do you do it all through like GitHub?
Yeah. Merging this pull request will blow your mind. All right, let's try to get quickfire. I don't know what quickfire means, but let's try it.
Yes, so one more question was, when you have several app ideas, how do you choose which one do you want to work on? And I think I want to ask the same thing. Anyone had multiple ideas and then they thought, should I go with this one versus this one? I think Chris, I mean, you did have a lot of games going on, and I guess you naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I have other ideas too. Like I've got a couple little side projects, but I always kind of feel like I don't know, I should be working on Nihongo because that's the one thing that actually makes me money. I play Final Fantasy 14, and I want to make something where you could set your iPad next to your computer while you're playing. It would pick up on the sound cues from to figure out what battle you're in, and then give you a guide to exactly how to have a strategy guide for that particular battle. So that's my.
Clever.
I work on that a little bit on the side every once in a while, but
That's awesome. I like that a lot.
But not often because it's not. I basically, once I had a successful app, I just focused on that mostly.
Yeah,
that's the real answer.
Cool. All right, next quickfire. Should we do apps or starting? All right, do you want to do this? Did you
Yeah.
all start out as indie devs or working in companies? How did your apps evolve? Were they minimal in the beginning and evolve? Right. For us, it was we mostly did freelance. Before that, we moved around the world a lot. So I'm originally from Germany. We're doing intros now, apparently. Mon is originally from Sweden, and I moved from Germany to Sweden. We lived at the Arctic Circle first. Yes. Then we moved to Australia. Then we moved to Canada, where we are now. So we kind of built up a little bit of a network of people that need apps developed, and we still often work with friends and companies in those countries. So it kind of naturally was a very kind of remote friendly environment because we moved frequently enough that that was kind of the setup we had. So
since we are doing contract work, we obviously needed to track our time and we needed to invoice for our time. So that's sort of like it was coming out of like a need from us, and then we sort of got the minimum features that we needed, and then we're like, okay, now this, like, if we tried several we tried like a dozen products that didn't fit what we wanted,
and it's also the thing always when you're like, you always find yourself reasons why what you're doing is totally making sense just because you're drawn towards it, right? So for us it was, hey, if we do freelance work, we need to find like a project we're working on when we don't have a lot of freelance work, right? You got to do something, and what we actually did is spend most of our time on the product that we want to work on, and didn't take as much freelance work. But to us, it all sounded like a super great synergy between working on a product that enables freelancing and freelancing work.
It sounds good from here.
Right? Anyone else?
I mean, another simple answer for me, I guess the last proper job I had was interning. So I don't think I've done any. I went right to the indie thing.
All right. There's one that I can answer really quickly. Can two devs join the Apple Lab together? Yes, that seems to be all right. We've had multiple labs that Mal and I joined together, but I've also heard from friends who've joined from different machines. Like they just both opened the WebEx link, and so far I've not heard anyone complain. But as always, if you're in a lab, if you think you might do something that's not normal, just ask the person, the designer, the engineer in the lab if they're fine with whatever your setup is. And if they're saying, yep, we're fine, then that's legal. App Store optimization is another upvoted question. Do you find App Store optimization difficult? And I think that's the last one we're going into because we're running way over time.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't see many questions that are really interesting, but I think it would be great to just chat about those in general once we get to the Gather Town.
Yeah.
So yeah, does anyone do any App Store optimization? Do you use that a lot?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've had. I mean, it's tough because I feel like it's hard to get great visibility, especially when you don't have a lot of traffic on your app. So figuring out like how to figure out the right keywords can be tricky. There's lots of little weird sort of tricks to do too. Like I learned recently, it took me forever to figure out that apparently you get 2 languages. Every app store or region has 2 languages associated with it. And so it doesn't make sense to like duplicate across languages because English is the backup for a ton of them. So anything you put in your English, like don't duplicate in another language, basically. Lots of weird stuff like that. But sounds like Christian just learned something. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I'm not sure I've totally cracked it, but yeah, a lot of trying and measure things.
I'm interested about the new features. It seems like Apple realizes that, right? The A/B testing for your product pages. I've not seen this session. I don't know if it's out yet, but I'm very curious about that. If there's actually like, hey, can you try different keywords and different pictures and videos, and then actually see like which one did
like what does
entice people? Because there's also 2 things, right? You want to entice people to try it out, but you also want to convey what your app actually does, right? It doesn't help if you get 10,000 downloads and I was like, wait, this is not a pipe puzzle game. This is a Japanese dictionary.
Yeah.
No, I hope it would be really cool if they took that. And that was just like the first step. It would be really neat if Apple did like A/B testing in the app itself, or allowed you to do it in like a privacy first way, because there's a lot of solutions, but they're all kind of a pain to integrate. And so it'd be cool if this is just kind of Apple getting started.
Do any of you use App Store paid? What's it called?
Paid
Ads.
advertisement?
Yeah. Anyone?
Like the search ad stuff?
Yeah, the search ad. That's the one.
Yeah. I did. I tried it briefly, but I found like I was mostly just like competing with myself, or like everything was so expensive that it didn't make sense. Yeah, it was. Well, like I like if I did the automatic one, like you'd search for Apollo, and I'd be paying to be the result above Apollo, and I was like, I'm not sure who that's benefiting, but I just paid 20 cents for that. So.
Yeah, we started setting up the advanced ones, and you actually get a little bit more insight, which I think is pretty useful. So I think the insights is almost more valuable, at least for where we are, to kind of figure things out, because you get like, how do people find you? What kind of thing did they search for? You can kind of see like the analytics I would just like to have for our actual apps, like search, the advanced search ads actually give you some of that. How about you, Vidit?
I've not tried search ads yet. It seems like I'm ineligible for them, but like that seems like a criteria that could be met at some point down the line.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we should wrap it up. And yeah, it was. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. It was awesome chatting with you. And thanks for everyone who's been listening as well. Looking forward to see people back in Gather.
And one final time, gotta download Apollo, Nihongo, and LookUp. They're all amazing apps. If you don't have a need for any of those, I think everyone would also appreciate a positive rating anyways. If you haven't completed your good deed for the day, find your favorite indie app or your favorite indie developer, rate the app 5 stars, rating, reviews, anything. I think it always makes my day, and I'm sure other people feel the same.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll plug Orbit and Towerfall as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
Enjoy the rest of WWDC, everyone.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right. Bye.
Thanks.
Cool. Nailed it.